Hi, this is Shep Altshuler, publisher of TimeSharing Today. Welcome to TimeSharing Today broadcasting, featuring news and views of owners and industry professionals. Today, we are being joined by Howard Nusbaum, CEO and President of ARDA. We will be discussing the state of the industry, its key challenges and opportunities for all who make up the community of vacation ownership. Hi, Howard. Welcome to the broadcast.
Hi, Shep, and thank you for inviting me onto the podcast.
No, it's my pleasure. And I'd like to start off by getting ARDA's perspective on the current state of the timeshare industry.
You know, it's been an interesting couple of years. We, I believe, have finally, after several years of feeling a little downtrodden, seen the light at the end of the tunnel, probably starting back in 12, but really culminating in 15 in terms of our attracting new owners again, after the credit freeze and the whole shrinkage that happened because of that. And I think that we're very much on solid ground, an $8 billion industry domestically. When you look at Mexico, we're probably, that's another 3 to 4. We're doing a worldwide study right now, so if you invite me back, if I really stay on good behavior, I can give you those total global numbers probably in about 6 months. But probably the headline is consolidation. It's not surprising to any of your listeners that over the last few years, we have seen, large timeshare companies buy the smaller ones. It really had been going on for about 15 years, really sped up during the downturn. And, somebody said to me, isn't consolidation bad for ARDA or bad for the industry? And I'm like, well, not really. I kind of believe that consolidation in a capitalist society, and that's what we live in our free market world, that as an industry grows and catches on and becomes more mainstream, it's a natural iteration for it to consolidate. Look at the hotel industry, look at the airline industry, look at the gaming industry, look at the cruise industry. And I'm just picking industries in our world. We could talk about banking or pharmaceuticals as well. But whenever you have a business model that works and that is healthy, that is natural, that the larger players will buy smaller players looking for efficiencies to grow. So does it change the course of the industry? Does it make my job a little differently, or does it impact timeshare owners? Absolutely. But first of all, to say, gosh, I wish we could stop consolidation would be like a travel agent in 1995 saying, let's stop the internet. It may not have been good for individual travel agents that the internet came along, but it was good for consumers, and it was certainly good for travel. And I think the same thing is true about consolidation. Today we have very well-capitalized companies that have big brands and are publicly traded, care deeply about the wake of their boat, have the resources to weather storms and to grow their business, to do the right R&D, and it makes me believe that the golden days of timeshare are ahead of us, not behind us.
With that in mind, I'd like to get some idea of how the developer community is looking at new projects, development of new projects, and exploiting hot destinations. You mentioned Mexico and so forth. Could you get a little bit more into that?
Sure. I mean, there was a time when we were fixed week, fixed unit, that destination-driven growth was hugely important. Today, the vast majority of the companies are selling a club product, a points-based product. So whether I am buying today in Branson, Missouri, or I'm buying in Boston, Massachusetts, or I'm buying in Bangalore, India, the reality is I'm probably buying into a large club with lots of wanderlust, lots of ideas of travel around the world, and it isn't so much about a home resort preference as it once was. So, when somebody says to me, well, where are people building? Well, they're building everywhere. There's asset light. There's ability to touch all types of product and to put it into your club. So where you buy doesn't necessarily mean that's where you're going to go. And when we talk to our newer owners, and when I talk about newer owners, I'm talking about owners that have bought in the last 36 months, they see this as a ticket to seeing the world, to better family vacations, as opposed to having a place in Myrtle Beach, which is probably a culture shift from 30 years ago.
Now that would follow the interest in attracting younger buyers. So are you really seeing younger buyers coming into the vacation ownership community?
Yes, because it's lifestyle, and I can get you some statistics on that, but of the people that have purchased in the last 36 months, only 49% are Caucasian, where if you look at all owners, it's probably 30 points higher than that, at least 25. And that is because First of all, we're selling to a larger mass market. It's starting to look like America. I always joke that we've gone from looking like Leave It to Beaver to Modern Family, using those television shows as kind of an example. But today, more than 50% have kids at home. By the way, if you go to vacationbetter.org, I have to do a commercial. That's www.vacationbetter.org. All of these stats are on there. But basically, they're younger, they're more diverse, they're more affluent. The average income is approaching $100,000 a year. They're college educated, they own a home. They're buying this because they want better family vacation. I do think that maybe makes the challenges of resort operations, especially for our sold-out resorts, even harder, because you have to deal with clients who've been members for 30 years. It's their second home alternative. They love their product. They maybe really are very concerned about keeping maintenance fees low, very concerned about making sure they have the things they wanted. And then we have these new owners and exchangers that want various experiences, and they're more interested in 3 pools than low maintenance fees. So how do you harmonize all that? So I think managing a resort is harder today than ever before, and that is a product of our success.
Now, where my focus has been significantly on the legacy resorts, and when we look across the spectrum of the industry, and we're looking at deeded properties, from your perspective, would you say that the deeded in perpetuity timeshare interest is dead?
No, I wouldn't say it's dead. I'd say it's a double-edged sword. There was a time where selling a deed was a huge advantage, that there have been cultural shifts in our society. If you're 35 years old, that means you were probably, in your late 20s when the downturn happened. And it also might mean that you see owning a home not the same way your parents or grandparents saw it. Also today, when I grew up, it wasn't uncommon for people to live down the street from their parents who lived down the street from their grandparents. Where today, you send your kids away to college, they move to San Francisco, they move to New York, they move to Chicago, they follow their careers, families are all over the place. So I think that there has just been a big shift in what home ownership is and what roots are. And when you talk to a lot of millennials, and millennials are, anywhere from, 15 to 35, they see owning, whether it's a timeshare or a car or a primary home, as bondage sometimes, as something that keeps you from being able to be mobile. Now, that's a big generalization, because I will share something that our focus group has shown us. And that if you talk to a millennial, let's say you're 30 years old and you have a 3-year-old, you look a lot like a baby boomer who's 52-year-old who has a 3-year-old. So when you start traveling with small children, having a separate bedroom, having a kitchen, having the ability for everybody to have their own space becomes compelling. Now, there are much more rental opportunities than ever before, so I think we're competing more in the rental space. That's going to force us to get smarter and better. I do believe that companies will come up with things that have easier entrance and exit. Buying an automobile is perpetuity, in the sense that the minute you buy it, it's titled to you. You own it until you sell it. And until then, you're responsible to license it, oil it, regulate it, insure it. The same thing with a timeshare. So if there is a healthy secondary market, if I know I can exit, even if I can just give it back to the dealer, then I might not be afraid to buy a car or lease a car. Same thing with timeshare. So the challenge for these large publicly traded developers, how do you create product that has ease of entry and ease of exit and can still meet the standard of the accounting rules that go with selling real estate? But, at the end of the day, it's about what the market wants.
Now, with that in mind, we know a lot of major hotel brands moved into vacation ownership products, and we also see those brands diversifying. They're coming out with new names, Aloft and Moxie or whatever they're targeting, and they're also expanding their suite concepts. How do those hotel suite concepts compete with vacation ownership, particularly when it's intra-brand, like Hilton Vacation Club and the Homewood Suites, for example?
Right. I think they complement more than they compete. First of all, anytime somebody's talking about staying in a product that is more than 200 square feet hotel room, timeshare wins, because we are the king of having space for everybody. the shared purpose of being at a timeshare resort is so unique. I would compare it maybe to a cruise ship, where everybody is on vacation and there are lots of activities for the kids, and you're hanging out by the pool with other couples and your kids are in the swim relay races, or the little girls are getting their hair braided and the boys are in the summer camp program, and there's all this activity and it's this shared purpose. At night you're grilling a steak and the family next door is grilling a steak on the grill next door, and you're all talking and it's fun. That's unlike the hotel experience. I don't know. I'd like $1 for every time I've been to a hotel and I went to go to the pool and there's a little rope there that says, sorry, closed for private party. Actually, sometimes if you go to the ARDA convention, we're the ones that are closing it for the private party. But the reality is, when you stay in a hotel, you've got business people. You've got transient travelers. You've got the soccer team. You've got the sequestered jury. You have all these different needs that aren't on the same page. I want to get a good night's sleep at 10 o'clock. I don't want noise in the hall. I don't want kids running around. At a timeshare resort, we're all on vacation. It's a shared purpose. There's a magic. It's the same magic that I see when I'm on a cruise, of being with all these people that are shunning the activity of the day, of all the normalcy. They're turning off their cell phones. They're loving their kids. They're loving their family. They're building their memories. And that shared purpose is a magic that we have in our industry, that when you talk to timeshare owners, it's the glue. You know, that couple over there, we've been going on vacation with them for years because they had the timeshare next door to us and we were fixed week, fixed unit, and our kids played together, and now they're in each other's weddings. And that's the glue of our industry, that it's such a community. And I think our legacy resorts understand that even more than anyone else.
Now, when we look at legacy resorts, we see an aging owner base, and we see that owners are dying at an increasing rate. That translates into a piling up of unsold inventory, and that's a dilemma, a problem within legacy resort operations. How do major brands look at that situation of the aging owner base and unsold inventory? Is that a factor within their models that they have to deal with?
But I don't think the brand part matters as much as in that world. I think it is, that when we've done a lot of deep dives of looking at legacy resorts, and I applaud the Timeshare Board Members Association that also brings people together for some of these solutions. I applaud the work that the NTOA has done in this area. It takes a village. Talk over in Europe. And this is where consolidation is our friend, Shep. Because the reality is, these larger companies that can come in and recapitalize can make that product good again. I wish I could tell you that I have figured out how to make it so nobody dies, but we all know how the movie's going to end. All of us someday are going to, pass. So if you own perpetuity, that matters. And the ability to recycle inventory is key. Whether you can do that through being part of a club, whether you can do that by finding a good marketing partner or a good management company. I see what some of the large management companies are doing, where they're creating all kinds of resale and rental programs and helping these resorts. There are solutions for them, and it's interesting. I will talk to owners that, because of our ARDA Rock, we have 1.5 million timeshare consumers that participate in our advocacy on a legislative way. And we also have a consumer hotline, and we get a lot of calls, and it's really interesting. I will hear from some legacy owners who are like, I am so excited. Our resort was just purchased by this big brand. They're going to come in and recapitalize. They're going to get new countertops. We're going to do this. Yes, the maintenance fees are going to go up, but I'm going to have better vacations again, and I'm going to have a product that probably has a better residual value, so I'm excited. But then I'll get just as many, if maybe more, calls from a legacy owner who'll call me and say, I didn't mind the cracked Formica. And you know what? I just want to make sure my maintenance fees don't get over $600 because it's too expensive. I'm on a fixed income, and I don't want to be part of a club, and I don't want to tip a maid. And it's very interesting to hear the same action being reacted by two different groups of people that see it so differently at the same resort. So I don't know that there's a one size that fits all. I think it is important that if we've had owners that have paid off their mortgages, current on their maintenance fees, and their lifestyles are at a point where they can no longer utilize the product and they don't want the carrying costs, that we create elegant exits for them. And that's easier to do if you're part of a club that has a sales line. If you're in a sold-out resort, it's very hard for those board members to say, well, you can give it back to us, because what are they going to do with it? So I think all of us, no matter whether you're, the loyal readers of TimeSharing Today or the Board Members Association or you're the NTOA or ARDA Rock or a group of developers, we have to work to create solutions to reward our customers who've loved their product, who've used it, who've paid their bills, and now they're at a point in life where they can't use it anymore. We have to create exits. And I'm not going to leave this job at ARDA until we find those solutions.
Now, we're looking at what I call a split personality within the industry. I know I go to owners' meetings, and anecdotally, I ask how many of you like owning a timeshare. Invariably, 99% of the attendees love owning a timeshare. They love the experience, and I'm sure your research, supports that. But at the same time, we see negative talk going on that affects a percentage, not the majority percentage, but it affects a percentage of owners and buyers, and that's reflected in the negative press that's out in the mainstream media about timesharing being one of the worst buys that anyone could make, and that's up. But let me just finish the point. So one of the issues we get concerns, and we've seen some litigation relative to timeshare sales, and there was a report recently in the New York Times about the hard sell of timeshares rolling back or persisting in the marketplace. And it seems that those kinds of selling tactics are still alive and well. So, why is that?
Well, there's two subjects here, and I want to address both, and I'll start with your final question there. I saw that article too, and it was disheartening. And I'm not. I also saw that company, which is a publicly traded company, and sent a letter to all of their stockholders refuting the article. And it's he said, she said. I don't know what's true or not true. I do know this. I'm old, Shep. I'm turning 60 this year, humbling as that may be. I've been going through timeshare tours for 25 years, and I can tell you that the experience I have today is far more consumer-centric than it's ever been. These large brands coming in have brought in a level of hospitality. I'm not saying that there weren't great independents before, but I do believe that some of these hospitality brands have been the tide that has helped to rise all boats. The point I'm making is I think it's far more consumer-centric today than ever. Does that mean that there isn't a hard sell somewhere? But when I see these articles, and I sometimes look who's quoted in it, and is it an advocacy attorney whose living is made on helping timeshare owners interrupt their contracts, who takes upfront fees to get them out of a contract? If they're the person being quoted in it, is it somebody who's a disgruntled owner? Because I have to tell you, we have a consumer call here too, and I know what the pattern of bad behavior looks like when I see it, and I had not experienced it with that company. So I want to wait and see the end of the ball game on that one. Now, I do think that there is another subject that we were talking about, and the satisfaction rate. Most people, I think our most recent study was 83%. So if there are 9 million timeshare owners in the United States, I'm rounding down a little bit, 83% is a lot of people. But 17% of being unhappy is also a lot of people too, and we have to serve them. I remember when Horst Schulze used to be the CEO of Ritz-Carlton before Marriott purchased it, and he won the Malcolm Baldrige Award for total quality. And at that time, Ritz-Carlton as a hotel brand had like a 98.5% satisfaction rate. And Horst Schulze was on stage and he said, you know what that means? That means we had 114,000 customers leave unhappy. And that's sort of how we have to look at it. What is wrong for those 17%? Is it they didn't understand what they bought? Is it because they couldn't afford what they bought? Is it because the rules changed, they think? Is it because they didn't get good customer service? Is it because they couldn't exit when they wanted? Or is it because their lifestyle changed? We need to understand that and address it. Or is it because they were unhappy because they got a phone call from a lawyer that told them they should be unhappy? There's plenty of blame to go around in the world for things that have done wrong. And I could start with developers. I could start with well-meaning board of directors who thought their job was to keep maintenance fees low rather than to recapitalize a resort. I could start with timeshare owners who bought something they got excited about buying, but they hadn't thought through about the way they could use it. Or I could go by a salesperson that oversold and lied and deceived. Or I could go by the fact that somebody bought perpetuity and their life changed. I mean, it's sort of like when we talk about the downturn. It's not just the banks that caused the problem. The realtors did it. The closings did it. The guy who signed that his income was larger than it was did it. The subprime loan did it. So, it takes a village to fix these problems. It took a village to screw them up, too.
So from ARDA's point of view, you're cognizant of these sore points that are out there, and you're sensitive to them. And we know that those practices do exist to create this 17% of dissatisfied owner. I was curious because I've had extensive background in the franchise industry and the franchise disclosure laws, which preclude somebody from entering into a binding agreement for 14 days. They can't pay any upfront fee money. It gives them a greater period of time to take documents away from a presentation and have them reviewed by an attorney. There are rescission provisions in timeshare purchases, and the European Union has a 14-day cooling off period. Is that something that would make sense here in the U.S. to provide?
Yeah, I'm really proud of our U.S. regulatory scheme, and it's not without bias. ARDA, worked with quality developers and good lawyers and owners back in 1981 to pass the first bellwether legislation in Florida. We have financial assurance, which makes sure that the money that is being used to build the resort comes from developer resources or loans that they have, not from the consumer's payments. We have escrow. We have rescission. We have one-to-one. We have public offering statements that are vetted to make sure that the promises made are promises kept. And that's not just in the state where the product is domiciled, but also in the state where that is of the residency of the consumer who purchases it. If Europe had that same kind of structure, their business wouldn't be in trouble. They wish they had created that. Instead, they tried to voluntarily regulate, and that's why they ended up getting a directive. I think rescission, whether you're buying an automobile or a timeshare or a house, anytime you're making a large price ticket purchase, there is a level of, wait a minute, what did I just do? And anybody should be able to get out. In fact, we have in the ARDA Ethics Code, we don't care if there's no rescission in the state law or in that country. If you're an ARDA member, you have to offer 3 days of rescission, minimum. Some states it's as much as 10. I think rescission is a good thing. First of all, if you have a bad marriage on your honeymoon, you got a problem. So if you've got somebody who bought and they want out in day 3 or day 10 or day 30, you should let them out. That isn't going to be a good marriage. So I think rescission is a positive thing. I'm proud of the regulatory scheme we have today. And companies like Marriott and Disney and Hyatt and Holiday Inn and Wyndham would never have gotten into the business had we not created that regulatory structure. It's always what came first, the chicken or the egg. Well, if ARDA and quality independent developers had not worked to create this regulatory scheme to protect consumers, then big companies like Marriott wouldn't have come into the business in 1984. So I think the rest of the world, and I work with them all. I'm heading off to Singapore. I'm going to Tate Talk in the UK. They're all envious of the regulatory structure and the consumer protections. And that's why more than 2/3 of all the timeshare owners in the world live in the United States.
Just to follow up on that a little bit, because I've heard you say at meetings that no one gets up in the morning with the idea that they're going to go out and buy a timeshare. And I'm just wondering about the timeshares that are purchased on impulse. Somebody's on a vacation and they're in this euphoric state. They go to a timeshare presentation and they sign on. And even though there's a 3-day rescission period, they're going on with their vacation. They're happy they bought it, and they're not paying attention to the 3-day rescission period. So a week later or 10 days later, they get home and they're stuck. So is there, there's no out. And I think that may be part of the problem, where people don't have enough time to research the arrangement or research the products that they're buying into.
Well, the Internet's our friend there. I think today we found that the average purchaser has been through at least 3 tours and has visited websites, has looked at the secondary market as well. I think today's consumers are more educated and armed and understand. It used to be you didn't know you were going to a timeshare tour. Today you kind of do. Often with the brands, you get concierge calls before your minivac, etc. I think, and by the way, the 3-day rescission is a minimum. In many places it's 5 and 10 days. I also think that consumers need to be savvy. I don't want to vilify any one profession, and I work with many lawyers I like, but it sure seems to me that there is a lot of noise that's being made by people who profit from people interrupting their contracts. Quality developers, in my experience, have been very willing to let people out who bought something they couldn't afford or changed their mind before they made a first payment. Forget what the law says. I know anecdotally what good developers do. I'm not saying every developer, but good developers do. I truly believe that if we did a man on the street interview with people that just bought a timeshare, they would understand what they bought. They would have been through 2 or 3 tours before. They didn't come just for the gift. I'll tell you, I have a lot more faith in the American public than I think some attorneys do.
No question that people who are savvy and have their wits about them will think through the purchase, and some of them will continue with the ownership, and some of them will decide that it's not for them, and they're going to back out. So as long as there's an understanding that we don't live in a perfect world, and as you said, there are good developers, and then there are developers who don't necessarily play by the right rules, and that's a good understanding to have. So owners have to be more aware of what they're getting themselves into. It's not like leasing a car. There's a bigger commitment. There may be financing involved. And I think it's what you say is at least encouraging from the point of view that we understand that a problem can exist within the industry.
Absolutely. And one last thing I want to say, because I got into a little Twitter battle with Dave Ramsey on this subject last year or the year before. And it goes back to this whole idea of financial investments. Why do people think that timeshare is a bad financial investment? First of all, we get confused because we're real estate based to look at us like traditional real estate. Really, the value proposition we're offering people, if you like to take a vacation, and your idea of vacation is not sleeping on grandma's couch, but actually going and staying in a hotel and getting away with your family, we're going to show you how you can trade the dollars you spend today on buying a product that will give you more space, more comfort, more quality assurance, a better family vacation, and after so many years of use, depending on what you buy and how you like the vacation, maybe it's 7 years, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 12 years. It doesn't matter to me. But at some point, you got the payback of the money you were going to spend, and then it becomes a strong value proposition. If I spent 30 years going on vacation every year in a hotel, and let's say I spent, pick whatever number you want, $3,000 a year. So in 10 years, that's $30,000. In 20 years, that's $60,000. In 30 years, that's $90,000. You're never going to get a check in the mail saying, here's a residual value for what you spent. What you get is better family experience, wanderlust, and great memories, and that's why people buy it. That same timeshare owner, you look at it in 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, they're going to have the best memories. They're going to have more space. They weren't eating pizza on a bed. They weren't lining up in the game room for $5 Cokes. They are actually having a great family vacation. Mom and dad get romantic time. The kids get their own room. Grandma and grandpa can come. Tween-age kids can bring their friends, so it's still cool to go on vacation with your family. And everybody wins, and you didn't spend money you wouldn't have spent anyway. We're just asking people to trade the dollars that you normally spend on vacation for something that offers you more consistent quality. Now, if you don't like to take a vacation, or if you don't want to spend any money on a vacation, don't buy a timeshare because you won't be happy.
Knowing what you're getting into and how to use the product are key, and then also creating an exit strategy that works for the aging owner who can't afford to travel or is not able to travel or has passed away, and now we have heirs that are inheriting properties that they have no clue as to what it's all about. And that to me is something that ultimately the industry is going to come to grips with. I think time is on the side of the developers. I'm not quite sure if time is on the side of the majority of legacy resorts because they're facing those problems on a day-to-day basis.
Well, we're working on some tools to help them. Our foundation is developing a new primer on Now You're on the Board. What does that mean? That we're going to be distributing to help people be able to meet those responsibilities and educate their owners. We want to have tools for legacy resorts. We'll partner with anyone, and I put this challenge out to all your listeners. My email address is hnusbaum@arda.org. That's HNUSBAUM @ARDA.org. I answer all email. May not be the same day, but I will answer it. I welcome any thoughts. They don't even have to be positive ones. Sometimes you learn the most from talking to people that think differently than you. So we are together going to solve these challenges because I truly believe the best days of our industry are ahead, and not just for timeshare developers, but for timeshare owners too.
Well, Howard, I want to thank you for taking the time to participate on the broadcast today, and I think we all are striving to move towards a happy, carefree timeshare vacationship.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for everything you do.
Thanks a lot. And this concludes this program brought to you by TimeSharing Today Broadcasting. You know, at TimeSharing Today, your opinion really does count. So take a few minutes and send us your comments about today's interview. If you would like to participate in a future broadcast or suggest a topic for one, please send all comments to staff@tstoday.com. And until next time, happy time sharing.